Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive into the most important current affairs you need to know for your UPSC exams.
It's great to be back.
And today we're tackling a topic that's been dominating the headlines, and let's be honest, it's a perennial favorite for those UPSC examiners.
Oh yeah, this one's a classic.
India-US relations.
Oh,
We've got some insightful reporting from the Indian Express and the Hindu to guide us, so let's jump right in.
sounds good. I'm ready to unpack this.
So to set the stage, we've seen a flurry of activity lately with Prime Minister Modi and President Trump meeting in Washington, signaling a real push to elevate this partnership.
And for our UPSC aspirants out there, this relationship is a recurring theme across GS papers, essays, even interviews. You really need to have a solid grasp of its complexities.
It's true, you can't escape it. And it seems like it touches upon practically every aspect of international relations, from defense to trade to technology.
Exactly. It's not just about knowing the facts, it's about understanding the why behind them. Why is this partnership suddenly so crucial for both countries? What are the driving forces and what are the potential challenges?
Right. And speaking of driving forces, let's talk about that big announcement that's been making waves. The U.S. agreeing to sell F-35 fighter jets to India.
That's a major development. We're not just talking about a few planes here, we're talking about a significant shift in the regional balance of power.
I mean, India already buys weapons from all sorts of countries. What makes this deal stand out?
It's about more than just the hardware. The F-35 is one of the most advanced fighter aircraft out there, and this sale represents a deeper level of trust and strategic alignment between India and the U.S. It sends a clear signal, especially to China, that these two nations are serious about collaborating on security in the Indo-Pacific region.
So it's as much about geopolitics as it is about military capabilities.
Precisely. And you have to consider it from India's perspective. They're dealing with an increasingly assertive China on their borders and in the Indian Ocean. The U.S., on the other hand, sees India as a crucial player in their strategy to counter China's growing influence. So this F-35 deal is a way for them to bolster India's military strength and project a united front.
And that whole QA dynamic comes into play here too, doesn't it? The quadrilateral security dialogue, India, the U.S., Japan, Australia. It's all a promoting of free and open Indo-Pacific. And this defense partnership seems to fit right into that framework.
Absolutely. The Q8 isn't a formal military alliance, but it's a clear indication that these four nations are increasingly coordinating their efforts to counter China's assertiveness in the region. And for India, strengthening its defense ties with the U.S. adds to its credibility and influence within the QA.
Okay, so we've got the F-35s, which are obviously a big deal. But the Hindu also pointed out a whole bunch of other defense agreements as well. Things like joint development and manufacturing initiatives, even collaboration on autonomous defense technologies. It seems like they're going beyond just buying and selling weapons and actually working together to develop new ones.
You're right, it's not just transactional anymore. There's a growing focus on co-production and technological collaboration. That signifies a more long-term commitment to building a truly integrated defense partnership.
So it's like they're saying, hey, we're not just customers, we want to be partners in innovation.
Exactly. And for our UPSC folks, this raises some interesting questions. How will this impact India's strategic autonomy? Will it become overly reliant on U.S. technology? These are the kinds of nuanced debates you should be considering as you prepare for those exams.
That's a good point. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of a big defense deal, but we need to think critically about the long-term implications.
Absolutely. And that's key for cracking those UPSC questions.
Okay, so defense is obviously a huge piece of the puzzle, but let's shift gears to another critical aspect of this relationship trade. We can't have a conversation about India-U.S. relations without mentioning that ambitious target, Mission 500, hitting $500 billion in bilateral trade by 2030.
Ah, yes. Mission 500. It's ambitious, to say the least.
$500 billion.
Hmm.
That seems like a pretty steep climb from where things stand today. Where's that growth going to come from? What are the key sectors driving this?
Well, you're right to be skeptical. It is a very ambitious target, and there are definitely some potential roadblocks, but there's also a lot of untapped potential. Right now, the trade relationship is heavily focused on certain sectors like energy and pharmaceuticals. There's a lot of room for expansion in areas like technology, agriculture, and services.
So it's not just about selling more of what they're already selling, it's about diversifying that trade basket.
Exactly. And this is where things get interesting for our UPSC aspirants. Think about India's overall economic strategy, Make in India, Digital India. These initiatives are all about boosting domestic manufacturing and technological innovation. How does this trade partnership with the U.S. fit into that vision? How can India leverage this relationship to achieve its own economic goals? These are the kinds of questions that could pop up on your exams.
Okay, so it's not just about trade for trade's sake. It's about how this economic relationship can support India's broader development objectives.
Precisely. And that brings us to another important point, the history of trade tensions between India and the U.S. We've seen tariffs disagreements over market access. It hasn't always been smooth sailing.
Yeah, there have been some pretty public disagreements.
Yeah.
So how do we reconcile that past friction with this sudden push for a massive trade expansion?
Well, it comes down to pragmatism and shared interests. Both countries recognize that a strong trade relationship is mutually beneficial. The U.S. sees India as a massive potential market for its goods and services, and India sees the U.S. as a source of investment technology and expertise.
So it's a classic case of frenemies. They might disagree on some things, but ultimately they need each other.
That's one way to put it. And for UPSC aspirants, this dynamic offers a lot to analyze. Think about the challenges of balancing economic interests with geopolitical considerations. How does India manage its relationship with the U.S. while also maintaining strong ties with other major powers like Russia and China? These are the kinds of complexities that UPSC examiners love to explore.
It's like a giant game of chess, isn't it?
Yeah.
Trying to make the right moves to advance your position while also anticipating your opponent's next move.
Exactly. And in this game, the India-U.S. trade relationship is a crucial piece on the board.
Well, I don't know about you, but my brain is already starting to hurt just thinking about all of this. But it's fascinating stuff, and it's definitely helping me see this whole India-U.S. partnership in a new light.
That's what we aim for, to help you connect the dots and see the bigger picture. And believe it or not, we've only scratched the surface. There's so much more to unpack, from energy cooperation to people ties to the constantly evolving tech landscape.
All right, well, I'm definitely hooked. So let's take it quick and dive into those other aspects of this fascinating relationship.
Sounds good. I'm ready to go deeper. You know, we were just talking about trade, but we can't really ignore the energy piece of this puzzle.
Right, you're right.
The Indian Express highlighted how India has actually been ramping up its oil and gas imports from the U.S.
Yeah, I saw that. And it does seem a bit counterintuitive at first glance. You know, with all this talk about reducing our reliance on fossil fuels.
It does seem like a bit of a paradox, doesn't it? Especially with all the emphasis on renewables and climate change commitments.
Exactly. So what's the logic here? Is this purely an economic play?
Well, it's partly about diversifying India's energy sources. You know, India imports a huge chunk of its energy needs, and by reducing its dependence on traditional suppliers like those in the Middle East,
Okay.
India gains some strategic flexibility.
So it's kind of a way to hedge their bets, avoid putting all their eggs in one basket, so to speak.
Exactly. Plus, it contributes to a more balanced trade relationship with the U.S. You know, those trade tensions we talked about earlier.
Right.
Increasing energy imports helps to offset that trade deficit a bit.
Okay, that makes sense. But we can't just sweep the climate change issue under the rug here.
Of course not.
How does this reliance on fossil fuels align with India's pledges to reduce its carbon footprint?
That's a valid concern, and it's something that those UPSC examiners will definitely want you to think about.
Yeah, for sure.
India's energy strategy is this delicate balancing act. You know, on one hand, they've got these ambitious renewable energy targets. They're investing heavily in solar and wind power. But on the other hand, their economy is growing so rapidly.
Right.
Their energy demands are skyrocketing, and those demands can't be met solely by renewables. Not yet, anyway.
So it's like they're walking this tightrope. They're trying to transition to a cleaner energy future, but in the meantime, they've still got to keep the lights on.
Precisely. And that's where the U.S. comes in. They're a major energy producer, and they're looking for new markets for their oil and gas.
Makes sense.
For India, this partnership offers a reliable and potentially cheaper source of energy, at least compared to some of the alternatives.
It's all about finding that sweet spot, isn't it, between being pragmatic and idealistic.
Exactly. And that's a theme that we see popping up again and again in this India-U.S. relationship.
Yeah, good point. But let's not forget about another really important dimension here, the people-to-people connection. The Hindu had a great article about the Indian student community in the U.S. I mean, the numbers are mind-blowing.
Oh, absolutely. The Indian diaspora in the U.S. is huge, and they're making significant contributions not just economically, but culturally as well.
It's true. Hundreds of thousands of Indian students contributing billions of dollars to the U.S. economy. That's not small potatoes.
Not at all. It's a force to be reckoned with.
But it's more than just dollars and cents, isn't it? It's about cultural exchange, shared values, building bridges between two very different societies.
Absolutely. This presence of such a large and vibrant Indian community in the U.S. fosters a deeper understanding between the two countries. It helps break down stereotypes, promotes cultural diplomacy, and creates this network of individuals who have a stake in maintaining strong ties between India and the
It's
U.S.
like textbook soft power in action.
Exactly. But it also raises some interesting questions about brain drain versus brain gain.
Oh, yeah, that age-old debate.
Are these students returning to India after their studies and using their skills to contribute to their home country's development, or are they staying in the U.S. and enriching the American economy?
That's a classic UPSC topic right there. How do you measure the impact of this movement of talent? Is it a net loss or a net gain for India?
It's a tough question to answer definitively. There are arguments on both sides. Some say that the loss of highly skilled individuals hinders India's progress, while others point to the remittances sent back home and the potential for these individuals to eventually return with valuable experience and global perspectives.
It's like a two-way street with benefits and drawbacks on both sides.
Right. And for those preparing for their UPSC exams, it's crucial to understand all sides of the argument. You might get asked to analyze this issue in an essay or even during your interview.
So you've got to be ready to think critically and form your own informed opinion.
Exactly. And that leads us to another area where this relationship is really heating up technology. The Indian Express had a really interesting piece on the Trust Initiative.
Oh, yeah. Transforming the relationship, utilizing strategic technology.
What a mouthful.
Right. It's a bit of a tongue twister.
But it signifies some serious intentions for collaboration in cutting-edge fields like AI semiconductors and even space exploration. This stuff isn't just relevant for UPSC, it's shaping the future of the world.
You know, it's funny you should say that. I was just thinking the same thing.
Mm.
We're talking about technologies that are going to define the 21st century, and India and the U.S. are realizing that they need to work together if they want to stay ahead of the curve.
Exactly. For India, this partnership offers access to advanced technologies expertise investment. For the U.S., it's about tapping into India's massive pool of tech talent and creating new markets for their products and services.
So it's a win-win then.
Potentially, yes. But as with any complex partnership, there are also potential challenges and areas where friction could arise. Think about things like data privacy, intellectual property rights, and the potential for this collaboration to exacerbate existing inequalities.
So it's not all sunshine and roses.
Not quite, and that's where those analytical skills come, and UPSC examiners want to see you grappling with these complex issues. What are the potential downsides of this tech collaboration? How can India ensure that it benefits from this partnership without compromising its own interests or values?
Those are some tough questions. But it makes you realize just how multifaceted this whole India-U.S. relationship really is. It's not just about diplomacy and defense deals. It's about technology, trade, people-to-people ties. It touches upon so many aspects of our lives.
It really does.
Yeah.
And that's why it's such an important topic for UPSC aspirants. You need to have a deep understanding of this relationship, its history, its current dynamics, and its potential trajectory.
It's like we're trying to solve a giant jigsaw puzzle, trying to fit all the pieces together.
And it's a puzzle worth solving.
Absolutely. But before we get too carried away with global domination, kind of bring it back down to earth for a second. How does all of this actually affect the lives of everyday people in India? I mean, it's great to talk about defense deals and trade agreements, but how does that translate into tangible benefits for people on the ground?
That's a great question, and it's one that UPSC examiners often want you to consider. The ripple effects of this partnership can be felt in various sectors. For example, the tech collaboration we were just talking about could create a ton of new job opportunities, especially in fields like AI and software development.
So it's not just about abstract geopolitical maneuvering. There are real-world benefits for the Indian economy and workforce.
Precisely. And increased trade can lead to lower prices for consumers. Collaboration in areas like healthcare and education can lead to improved standards of living.
And those people-to-people exchanges we talked about, they create cultural bridges and opportunities for personal growth. It's like this relationship is weaving this complex web of interconnectedness, impacting everything from our economy to our culture to our daily lives.
Exactly. So while it's important to understand the high-level diplomatic stuff, never lose sight of the human impact. That's what makes this relationship so fascinating and so important to study.
Okay, so let's pause for a second and recap all of this. For our dedicated UPSC aspirants out there who are diligently taking notes, what are the key takeaways from this deep dive? What should they be focusing on for their exams?
Here are a few things to keep in mind. First, you need to understand the historical context of the India-U.S. relationship. It's come a long way since the days of the Cold War.
Right. It's a whole different ball game now.
Second, graph the key factors driving the current partnership. What are the shared interests and the strategic considerations that are bringing these two countries closer together?
So understand the why behind the what.
Exactly. Third, be prepared to analyze both the potential benefits and the challenges of this partnership. It's not all smooth sailing, and UPSC examiners love to test your ability to think critically about complex issues.
Yeah, they'll throw those curveballs to keep you on your toes.
And finally, you need to connect this relationship to broader global trends. How does it fit into the evolving geopolitical landscape? How does it affect India's role in the world?
Okay, so we've got the historical context, the drivers of the partnership, the benefits and the challenges, and the global implications.
Got it. Those are the key points. But always remember, UPSC exams are all about demonstrating your ability to think critically and connect the dots. So don't just try to memorize a bunch of facts.
Right.
You need to develop a deeper understanding of the nuances of this relationship.
Solid advice. And of course, the current events are always changing, so make sure you stay updated on the latest developments.
Absolutely. The news cycle never stops, especially when it comes to international relations.
Okay, well, there you have it, folks. A deep dive into one of the most consequential relationships on the global stage. We've covered so much ground today, from those F-35s and those massive trade deals to the future of global power dynamics.
And it's just the beginning. There's always more to learn and analyze.
Exactly. So keep reading, keep researching, and keep those UPSC dreams alive.
And a big thank you to the Indian Express and the Hindu for their insightful reporting on this evolving relationship. Their coverage has been invaluable for this deep dive.
Absolutely. Now, for all of you dedicated UPSC aspirants out there, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth analysis of current affairs that are essential for your UPSC journey. And as always, we love hearing from you, so leave your thoughts, questions, and predictions for the future of this dynamic duo down in the comments below. Until next time, happy studying.
Okay, so we've explored a lot, defense, trade, energy, those really fascinating people-to-people ties. But now I want to kind of put on my, future predicting hat.
And ask, what are some potential scenarios for this partnership down the line, 5-10 years from now? What are the possibilities?
Well, one possibility is that we just see this India-U.S. relationship continue to strengthen. It becomes one of, if not the defining partnership of the 21st century.
Okay.
Increased cooperation across all those areas we've talked about, defense, trade, technology, maybe even greater alignment on tackling global challenges like climate change or terrorism.
So real best case scenario, India and the U.S. become like this power couple on the world stage, shaping the global order together.
Exactly. But of course, let's be realistic. No relationship is perfect.
Right.
There are always going to be bumps in the road. So another scenario is that things kind of plateau, you know? Maybe domestic politics shift in either country, or there's some unpredictable global event that throws a wrench in the works.
Ah, yes. The ever-present wild card of global politics.
Always got to keep us on our toes.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's always that, that risk of things going in the opposite direction. What if India and the U.S. find themselves on opposite sides of certain issues?
Yeah.
Leading to a cooling of relations.
It's definitely possible.
Yeah, it's not a guaranteed happily ever after.
Right, and that's the nature of international relations. It's constantly evolving. There are no guarantees.
Okay, so last question for you. If you could give one piece of advice to our UPSC aspirants who are, trying to wrap their heads around all this, what would it be?
I'd say don't just skim the headlines. Go deeper. You need to understand the historical context, the motivations, the potential consequences of every action. That's how you develop your own informed perspective, and that's what those UPSC examiners are looking for.
Solid advice, because ultimately those UPSC exams aren't about memorizing facts. It's about demonstrating critical thinking, connecting the dots.
Precisely. And this India-U.S. relationship is a perfect case study for honing those skills.
All right, folks, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground, from F-35s and trade deals to the future of global power dynamics. But remember, this is just the starting point.
Keep learning, keep analyzing, and stay engaged with these issues.
And for all you dedicated UPSC aspirants out there, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more insightful deep dives into the current affairs you need to know. We want to give a huge shout out to the Indian Express and the Hindus for providing us with such thought-provoking content. And of course, we want to hear from you. Leave your thoughts, questions, and predictions about the future of this dynamic partnership down in the comments below. Until next time, happy studying.